What up, traders? What up, investors? Ken here from Dyslexic Investor, and thank you for tuning in for another fantastic video. We're going to be looking at what Dan Ives is saying, that the AI trade is not dead, that rotation for out of the AI and tech-heavy stocks, particularly the Mag 7, is not over. It's just a little bit of speed bump. We're going to continue seeing some green pastures and continue moving forward with the overall trades, or the overall tech sector being the greatest market leader, even though we're seeing IWM, regional banks, home builders, and all the other stocks slightly kind of coming off from their bottoms and making out to new all-time highs and really kind of breaking out that sense. That, without being further said, we're going to be looking at some key earnings this week. As we have Microsoft, Meta, Apple, Amazon, ARM, Boeing, AMD, Starbucks, no one gives a crap. SoFi, I don't care. PayPal, I definitely do not care. McDonald's kind of reported earnings already this morning. Nothing to really write home about that, just that their $5 menu is doing a little bit better. That's basically it, and still kind of just not trading that great. This is just a quick little overview of some of the charts here, but I want to cut to the Dan Ives interview on CNBC, and then we'll kind of cut through and go through some of the charts taste by taste, or so forth, so forth. All right, let's go ahead and cut to that now.
Dan, did it scare you a little bit? I've read your notes. Did it really scare you a little bit last week to see what happened with Alphabet and Tesla and their results?
I mean, Dom, it didn't, because if I look at the underlying AI growth in cloud, specifically from Alphabet, that's bullish. And where's Tesla going to be spending? It's going to be on incremental AI. Look, I think it's going to be a big week for tech earnings. I mean, when you look at Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Meta, this AI revolution, I think, is just starting. And that's why I continue to look at it as a get the popcorn out moment in terms of this tech bull market. This sell-off, I view it as a bump in the road, not the end.
All right, you got the popcorn out. So which of those four that I mentioned is going to be the main event for you?
Look, I think the main event is really going to be Apple, because that, to some extent, is really what we're seeing in terms of China growth. Obviously, iPhone 16 coming out September, the AI story, what we're seeing about demand. I think that'll probably have the broadest impact on the overall market. But then you look at cloud, Amazon, Microsoft. I expect strength there, similar as we saw in Alphabet. And I think that's what really the market's focused on here, despite a white-knuckle scare last week for the bulls.
All right, because you brought it up, I'm just going to follow up really quickly, because Apple's AI features will reportedly arrive now later than expected. A Bloomberg report says that they will now come in October instead of September and miss the upcoming software update cycle. So what does this mean for Apple's earnings call on Thursday, given that the Apple Intelligence feature is so front and center?
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't move the needle at all for us. I think it's really focused on
long-term traders,
iPhone 16 September. I think this is really going to be an AI-driven super cycle. And at the end of the day, those customers will be going to be getting those AI features. I don't view that. It all comes down to developers. Developers getting it on time, that's the hearts and lungs of the Apple ecosystem. That's the street's focused on.
You mentioned the cloud and the AI stuff that goes along with both Microsoft and with Amazon. If you take a look at those two stocks vis-a-vis what happened with Alphabet earlier this past week, maybe the results are positive, like you point out, but the stock reactions were not. So does this mean there's a shift in investor feeling or sentiment with regard to just what these AI ambitions are and how much they'll cost?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I think it's more just nervousness around when we're going to see AI monetization. Stocks have had monster runs. Some of the rotation to small cap. Is it over? But I believe this is the second inning of a 9-inning game. I mean, it is still 9 p.m. in this AI party that goes to 4 a.m. So, and I think that's what we're going to see. It's all about you follow the CapEx, follow the spending. That to me, that like last week, Alphabet, Tesla, those sell-offs are buying opportunities, golden buying opportunities.
And what about Meta platforms? People have been focused so much on Apple and Microsoft and NVDA and Alphabet. I mean, Meta platforms is still pretty high up there with regard to its weight in the markets. What do you need to see from Meta?
It's about the read-through from Alphabet. If you look at on advertising, that rebound, I think, is going to continue. That's what Zuckerberg's going to talk about. And look, even though that they've gotten, I think some worries about they're spending on AI capex, that's the right move. I mean, I think they are laying out this is an AI arms race playing out, and Meta is not going to be on the outside looking in.
And before we let you go, out of all the Mag 7, what do you think is going to be the best one in the next 12 months?
I think a year from now, Apple, $4 trillion market cap. Microsoft will get there as well as the godfather of AI, NVDA. But it comes down to Apple. Right now, massive tailwinds in Cupertino.
Wow. Wow. Apple, right? Apple's going to be number one on Dan Ives' list. Again, he's Webb Bush. He is very much a bull, and again with the super cycle and so forth going forth. Apple again, they are reporting earnings Thursday afternoon, with Amazon, Intel, Coinbase, DraftKings, and Roku. A couple of those names you probably haven't heard of since many years ago. But Apple, being the biggest play, is probably the one that is honestly somewhat on the healthier side. It's above the 50-day. Microsoft is also above the 50-day on the daily side here. And again, this has seen a tremendous run. He did hint on buying opportunities in Tesla, especially on the down pull. We did see that down pull due to earnings. Really didn't crack below that $200 level, which people thought. Traded around 215 and has bounced back up here, closing today around $232 here. Still, again, we see this yellow line coming into play. Let's kind of zoom out here and give you a better perspective here. Again, that was basically that 2.5, almost 3-year downward trend that we saw in Tesla, and it's starting to break out. Again, is this due to their full self-driving, AI plays, or just being the market leader in cars? I think it's a combination of all of those, especially which we highlighted on one of our previous videos on Jim Cramer's notes about the energy production and their battery packs and solar and so forth, actually expanding their margins there as well. Another one we wanted to look at is Microsoft. Again, this is on Tuesday, tomorrow, after the bell here. This thing is also performing well. You see this beautiful yellow trend line here. I like to make my trend lines a little bit extra thick so it takes a little bit harder for the candle to puncture through. So hopefully this holds, continues to drive higher here, and seeing how this one plays out into and after earnings here. Again, it's well above the 50-day. Again, the trend line can be broken at any time. If you know anything about trend lines, they can be broken, but mine are sometimes magical, and they don't. Another one we wanted to slightly talk about here, he did talk about it a little, he didn't discuss it, but AMD, kind of on the flip side of NVIDIA, this thing is trading below the 50-day here, kind of broke down on that tech rotation out of the Mag 7, a lot out of tech. He called it the white knuckle moment where people were freaking out. We had the NASDAQ down almost 3% in a day, or 3.3%, if I remember right, down in a day. That's pretty significant here. We'll see how this all continues to play out. But with Microsoft coming in after the bell tomorrow, Wednesday is pretty much in line on seeing a very large move up or down due to that. Meta as well. Let's go here to not the 2-day. We'll go to the 1-day. Give a little bit of a better perspective here. This thing is below here. The 50-day kind of not doing too great there. Microsoft, it is also below the 50-day. I apologize. I was looking on the weekly side here. This is the daily side. It is holding that beautiful yellow line again, which we drew there. To hopefully that continues to support that movement. Switching to another AWS or Amazon. This thing is. I actually want to go back to the longer data view. I apologize. I'm going back and forth here quite a bit here. I want to draw some lines here just to kind of give you a pretty good perspective here of this was the previous levels of resistance. We are trading below that now, which is not too great here, but we can draw another trend line here and seeing this one kind of come up here. Are we going to come into like a pincer? And see this potentially drive and push us higher here with Amazon. Again, what does Amazon have going for it? Yes, it just had Prime Day. Is that the largest catalyst in the world? I don't think so. but it's going to be a larger driver where we hear about AWS. We have Azure and a good Google Cloud kind of catching up in that sense, and how they're going to be spending on AI. They do have some AI models within their AWS stack. Google, again, Dan Ives talked about it. It reported last week. This is potentially a buying opportunity here. It is not has bounced back as much as Tesla has, but again, it did break the 50-day quite substantially here. Very large downtrend here. Basically, 3 days of red and then 1 day of a little bit of green. Nothing to really write home about. It did not fill this gap here around 263. Excuse me. So that still could potentially be broken into that level here. Doesn't have to, just to be hindsight on it. But speaking of volume and how it's been trading in the short term, I think this level around 264 to 263 is a pretty good line in the sand here. And by doing that, I'm going to give it a little bit of a blessing here, and seeing if it can kind of hold here with one of Ken's solid yellow lines there, and see if it continue to move higher here. I kind of want to close off the video with Apple again. Apple, Dan Ives pointed out, in next 12 months is his investment and or trade. This is a pretty looking chart here, even though with a lot of that tech sell-off, it did not break the 50-day. That's a lot of things to kind of keep eye on. Even the Godfather, well, you call it the Godfather of AMD or of AI, aka NVDA, has broken through the 50-day. Again, this thing has been very extended, a lot of run up. It's okay for it to consolidate. We just don't want it to crash. Again, the same thing with Apple here. It's consolidating. It's coming down. It's not gapping below the 50-day. But again, we do have earnings on Thursday afternoon. So there's all we'll be able to see on how this one plays out. So stay tuned. Much more coverage on this fantastic week of stocks coming out. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching and staying tuned. And I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.